that are here tonight, and we also have a great presentation that everyone will be interested in. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and also will you please make sure, okay, we're calling the meeting to order. Guys in the back, like in the back of the classroom there. Folks, and please make sure your phones are silenced. And we want to welcome all guests and members. Are there any guests here tonight? Please raise your hands, stand up. Very good. Thank you, thank you. Oh, wow, fabulous. So if you are a member, please reach out to these new folks and make sure they know what we are all about. All right, so now we have a few electeds in the House. We've got Barbara Schulman, Saddleback Valley Unified School District. We've got Dan Walsh, Saddleback Valley Unified School District. And who else do we have that currently is in a position right now? And anybody else? Okay, and Wyatt for the El Toro Water Board. That is Wyatt McQueen. He is currently serving in that position. All right, as you know, this is not a public forum. You're going to be on Facebook and Instagram tomorrow, so be ready for that. And these are the areas that we serve. And now we're ready for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have Walt in the house tonight? Okay, there he is. And if you will please lead us in the pledge. And we've got flags everywhere.
Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so in just a minute, we are going to do the consent calendar, and we are going to ask you to approve the support of two candidates, Jennifer Ingalls for Molten Miguel Water Board and Edgar Montes for SBUSD trustee. But before we asked you to do that, we thought you should definitely meet these folks, right? So I'm going to hand it over to Judy, and then we will go back to the consent calendar, and then we'll proceed with the agenda.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well this hot day. I met Jennifer Ingalls. I should say she sought me out, and the woman knows everything there is to know about water. I never realized there was so much to know, and she really understands how to get water safely to your home. So I would like to have Jennifer come up and say just a few words. Jennifer Ingalls, Molten Miguel Water District. This is an at-large position.
Thank you, Judy. Good evening, everybody. I apologize for the spam. You'll find my cards kind of everywhere. But please take one. You can give it a gander, maybe take a look at my website. Yeah, so I'm running for the Molten Miguel Water District because there weren't anybody else willing to do so. And my background is in mechanical engineering. I've done public works projects and construction for almost 13 years now. I look young, but I feel old. And but yeah, I firmly believe that we should leave no seat uncontested. And so I spent the last 2-ish years trying to recruit people to run both in city council and the water board. And I found one person. His name is David Petty. If you could stand up real quick, everyone give him a gander. So he's going to be running in the short-term seat. I'm going to be running in the at-large election, but the two of us are going to be working together to try and shift the Republican-dominated water board from a 6-1 to hopefully a 3-4. Yeah. I'll be hanging around, so please come find me, ask me questions if you want to know anything there is to know, and I will find it for you. Thank you.
And Edgar oh, he's here. He was being interviewed by the DPOC, the Democratic Party of Orange County. I met this young man several months ago, and I was extremely impressed with him, not only his resume, but how much he's accomplished at such a young age. Edgar is running for SVUSD District 5, replacing Barbara Schulman, although no one can replace her. But anyway, here's Edgar, Dr. Montez.
Thank you, Judy. And Janet, thank you, Janet, as well, too. And Barbara as well, too. Yes, no one can replace you. Absolutely, yes. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Edgar Montez, and 23 years ago, I decided that I was going to dedicate my life and my work to education. I decided to get into education, although at the time, I wanted to be an FBI agent, and the FBI recruiter that came around. So there's a few ways to get into the FBI. You can do law school, that's one of the ways, and so that was my way that I was going to get into the FBI. But I had my friends around me my senior year in college say, so you want to be an FBI agent, but you're going to go to law school. Do you know how much law school actually costs to get a degree? And so, so I stopped that. But what I found was an inner voice saying, I need to give back to the community. And I was given so much growing up and so many opportunities as a first generation college student, so many people helping me along the way that I said, I need to give back. And so I started off my career working for my alma mater, the University of San Diego, as an admissions counselor. And from there on, got my master's degree in school counseling. Met my beautiful wife, Sarah, who's not here tonight because she's home with our kids. But we met on our school counseling program. And so counseling is a big part of our lives. It especially helps right now because we have 2 kids in the Saddleback Valley School District, one that's going to be a second grader, and another one that's going to be a middle school student. So it helps to have a middle school counselor at home. Trust me, yes. And it also takes a certain breed to sort of work with those tweens at that age too. But we've been given so much in Saddleback. My wife works in a different district. She does not work in the Saddleback Valley district. But we feel that, we love the schools, we love the teachers, we love the staff. And I want to ensure that that continues. And I know the work that Barbara and other board members have done as well too, to keep that going. And I want to make sure that the schools keep thriving, that keep creating environments where students feel engaged, where families feel connected to the schools. Part of some of the work that I did was leading a new framework across California, across all 58 counties, to introduce a new framework around not just academic supports, but social, emotional, and behavioral supports. I feel nowadays there needs to be such a great increase to support the whole child. And I want to make sure that as decisions, and maybe some tough decisions come down the road, I want to ensure that there is an educator, that there's someone that has a pulse of the community. So thank you. More to say. My website is coming, dredgarmontez.com. But I just wanted to, I'm getting the sign here to get up. But I just wanted to thank all of you for just your support, and I welcome any of your time, your talent, your treasure to make this an opportunity into reality. So thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're now down to the adoption of the consent items. So we're going to adopt the agenda. We've got a quorum here. The minutes are with, where's Janice? If indeed you want to read through those again. And another really important thing that you should have a look at is the treasurer's report. At the beginning of July, we had just over $54,000. Now, at the end of July, we had just over $32,000, and that's because you generously approved the donations that we sent to all of those candidates last month. So we had deposits of a little over $4,000, and our expenses were $26,000 plus, and that's what you approve for our candidates. So with that, the board recommends both Jennifer and Edgar, and we also recommend $2,000 each for Engels and Montes for their campaigns. So, do we have a motion? Okay, Louise makes the motion, and Ann seconds it, and all in favor say aye. Any nays? Okay, very good. Thank you for your patience on that. Now, for my report, if you remember last month, I had to report that San Dennis had stepped down from her position. We desperately need a vice chair, so the board recommends installing Laura Kleckner as our vice chair to fill the vacancy that we now have. And I did follow the bylaws, and the bylaws were, my first had to go to the secretary, and I think Janice has enough on her plates, and she said, yes, I will help in any way, but I cannot be the vice chair. So then I went to our treasurer, who, yes, has a lot going, and he said the same thing. Of course I will help, but I cannot be the vice chair. So I would like to ask for a motion, and before I do that, just to let you know that our next election is in 4 months, so we will have an opportunity to redo that. So do I have a motion? Okay, so Ted makes the motion to install Melora Kleckner, and Barbara seconds the motion. All in favor say aye. Any opposition? Congratulations, there you go. And thank you very much, Melora, for stepping up, because actually she was going to run the last time, but when a new person showed up and said, oh, I would really like to do it, she said, oh, okay, well, she's got plenty to do, so thank you very much for doing that. Now, I also wanted to bring to your attention the Truman Dinner that is coming up. It is the main fundraiser for the DPOC. We have gotten a special deal on buying tables, so we bought 2 tables, so that means we have 20 tickets, and then our club has also subsidized. You will soon get an email from Cindy on the comms team offering you tickets for $150. If you go on the website for DPOC, you would have to pay $275. Now, we are offering those only to members right now because we are subsidizing them through our club, so we think that's fair. And then Melora is organizing it. Little did she know that right out of the chute, she's got a job here. And so there is her address if you have any questions, or maybe you don't get the email and you want to buy a ticket ASAP. So now we are going to move on to candidates, and Judy's back up again. Oh, there we go.
I'm back. JJ Galvez, who's running for AD 71, has come up with a really cool idea. It's very innovative. And we are asking you, if you're interested, to take a picture of that. Geez, I can never remember what they're called. QR code, thank you. And what JJ is doing is he is making short reels that cover his area, District 71, which is humongous and goes over the mountain into Temecula and Riverside. So it's a really difficult task for a newcomer to take on, and he's doing a great job. So if you take a picture of that QR code, it will allow you to suggest a place where JJ can visit. He's had pictures taken in Temecula, Oso Creek Trail here in Mission Viejo. So if you have any ideas for him for this reel where he can appear and talk a little bit about that area, we hope that you will take advantage of that and use the QR code for that purpose. Okay, as mentioned, Dan Walsh, Dan, stand up again if you're still here. Dan is a very lucky fellow or he's a very scary fellow, because nobody wanted to run against him. So he will not appear on the ballot. He's a shoo-in to be on the SVUSD school board. And I think that's really awesome. Then the Capo Valley District Number 7, Ron Ruth, is a NPP. We cannot officially support him because he's not registered as a Democrat, but we will do what we can to help him defeat those people who are running against him. And then on October the 20th, we managed to get Dave Min, and Dave Min is awesome. He's such a good representative. You people who live in Lake Forest and those areas have a wonderful congressional candidate. So he will be here October 20th. Maybe he can give us an idea of what Congress, the Democrats, are planning on doing to make some inroads in the midterms and maybe steer this country back in the right direction. Hopefully that's going to happen. Okay, so our candidate speaker tonight is Dr. Natalie Gusa, and she has appeared before, really, I mean, like it was in January, I think, of this year, but I wanted her to come back and talk to you about why she's running and what she's going to do to improve RSM. I know that she has been working very hard the past year, knocking on doors. She's already talked to over 1,000 households. It's probably 1,500 by now. And I hope that you will spread the word, if you know people in RSM, to support her campaign. Miss Natalie with her family and visitors from Germany.
Thank you, Judy, and good evening, fellow Canyon Democrats and friends. Thank you so much for showing up tonight, and thank you for being engaged citizens. As we all know, democracy starts with us, the people. It's our right to vote, to organize, and to create the change that we so desperately want to see in November. And I'm proud to say that I want to be part of that change. And seeing all of you here tonight makes me believe that this power and spirit is very much alive. As Judy said, my name is Dr. Natalie Guse. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I'm a business owner. And I'm running for Rancho Santa Margarita City Council District 2 to be exact. I'm running to put an end to a cruel and self-serving, arrogant, and dismissive leadership in our community. To remind you, thank you, Judy. It is the same city council that left 340 families without after-school care in a time where families struggle, where affordability is low and cost of living is sky high. In a nutshell, just to remind you all, my main goals are to, of course, bring after-school care back to our city for working families, so moms and dads can work, have more money, and infuse that money back into our local economy. I'm also running to finally implement term limits for our city council in Rancho Santa Margarita, which we don't have. And I'm also running to put an end to the vanity spending in the millions that our city council is approving, including an $800,000 sign and a $1 million fence. But I'm here tonight to give you a quick update on how my campaign is going. I'm a numbers girl, so here I go. I have 15 active and very engaged volunteers that are the backbone of my campaign, including my amazing husband, Nick, who not only has to put up with me, but he also advises me on all aspects of my campaign. Judy mentioned I'm already knocking at doors. I started knocking at doors in May. Currently, as of today, I'm proud to say that I've already knocked at 2,600 doors. Just for reference, my district has 4,100 doors. So by the first week of October, I will have knocked at every door, and I will repeat the process all over again. Also, I have a list of already 40 people who will put up yard signs, and that list is growing almost weekly. I'm also launching an email newsletter campaign that will go out to all registered voters in my district, including a text message campaign as well. I also was waving signs at all of our summer concerts in Rancho Santa Margarita. Some of these concerts attract thousands of people. We also distributed flyers and flags on 4th of July at the lake. 500 of those went out to people. But the most important update that I want to give tonight is the feedback that I'm getting at the doors when I knock at people's doors. When you speak to people face to face, there is no division amongst us and there is no hate. And it's incredible to see that. We all want the same things for our communities. If you minus out the media manipulation and political brainwash, we can all agree on the future of our cities. It's mind-blowing. This is why my message tonight is that we need to be kind and we need to build bridges and not judge the very people who got Trump elected. We need to start conversations and focus on the issues that we can all agree on. That's why I will focus on uniting people and not dividing them. That's the message I want to leave you with tonight. And of course, remember, I cannot do this alone. So if you can like my social media platforms, or if you have some dollars to spare, please consider supporting my campaign. And yeah, let's do this together. And I know we can win in November. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now we have all our candidates. Now, how does it after finish? That would be our headset, and then all of the speaking factors, and now she's going to tell you what happened.
Okay, so we won Prop 50 in the fall, and then we walked again for the primary. We kind of slowed down over the summer, which is good, but now we got to really hit the road hard, okay? So we are planning as a club to hand flyers on doors for 34,000 voter guides. And we're also going to be sending 13,500 postcards to gated and hard to reach apartments. So we will contact 47,000 voters this fall. And that can only happen if everybody signs up to distribute flyers. If you really want to knock on doors and talk to people, we have a way for you to do that, but you don't have to. We will be having a refresher class for PDI, and there's flyers like this back on the tables for each city, so you can pick it up, and it will also be in the newsletter. So I'm giving out tonight to the coordinators for each city enough rubber bands and staples for every household in their district. The people at Amazon wonder what in the world I'm doing. You know, okay, so if you can help us and participate in all of this, you can use the QR code to sign up for the training. It'll be in the newsletter. You can also fill out one of these yellow forms, and we will give those to the coordinators for each city, and they will get back in touch with you. We will, once we get that going, then we will be doing voter registration. Barbara Casillo, where are you, Barbara? I know you're here, in the back. We'll be doing that, and is already underway. And
Barbara coordinated our voter protection program that we did in concert with the state party, and we had people at every single vote center in our area. We will do that again. The most important thing is tell people not to use the US mail, especially right before the election. Remember, the post office is controlled by what branch of government? The federal government. And who's in charge of the federal government? Trump. So do you really want to trust your ballot to them? Hell no. Okay, those ballots go in the voter drop box or go to the vote centers, and Trump can't touch them. Okay, so it's really important that we be very direct about this. Thank you very much. I will be back to harass you next month.
And you can see that when we're sending postcards to thousands and thousands of gated community, that's cost money. And so you know, the money that we have in our budget is what we use to do all of that. Okay, so that was our field team. So next up will be, membership. Very important. All right, so we gained 11 people last month. We're up to 611. But especially important, the membership team needs you. What we need are, as you noticed tonight, several people are new and they just kind of showed up and they want to know more about us, or they're here to see a candidate, and we would like to extend the membership team such that there can be more one-on-one contact when someone just kind of walks into a room like this and says, who are all these people and what are they doing? So if you can help with something like that, or another thing is to follow up after the meeting. You know, like maybe I would follow up and I would say, Nancy, we noticed you came to the meeting last night. How did it go? Would you like to, what questions do you have about our club? So please think about that. And Audrey, where are you? There she is, way in the back. So before you leave tonight, just touch base with her and see what kind of things they need. That would be much appreciated. All right, so now we have social media, and that is run by our communications team. We have Cindy Ashley, we have Nancy Aziz, and we have Jackie. And these are people that you don't get to see very much, but they're always working. These are the different sites and avenues that we have for communicating. You come into it because it's very important, A, for you to be looking at all of this and staying informed, especially on Sunday afternoons. That's when the team sends out the newsletter. Just for you to at least, you don't have to read every piece, but look through the main things that interest you so that you can be involved and see where the needs are and kind of what's going on out there. Because sometimes there's a little controversy and there's stuff. Now with the social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, or YouTube, we need you to keep that active. So if you're not so much into those things, you know, communicate with someone in your family. You've got lots of family folks that love to do this stuff and do likes and make comments on that. So on a regular basis, we need that to be done. Okay, so fundraiser, here we are. We've got Marty who leads the team, and she's gonna fill you on what's going on, because this is where another chunk of our money comes from.
Hello, Canyon Dems and friends. How you doing? Good to see everybody. Okay, we have our sustaining donor program. We've talked about it before. It's for people who give a little bit extra in addition to their membership. For the small amount of $10 a month or a one-time 120 a year, you could be a sustaining donor too. So far, our members who are sustainers have given a total of $10,170 extra. That's amazing. And if you are a sustainer and you didn't come to the party and you didn't get a button that says, I sustain democracy, stop by. I have a couple at that back table there. So if you need one, come and get one. How do we flip the thing? Oh, there it is. Okay. Tonight we did Change for Change. We've got a bucket back there that people are getting very creative, and it's change for change and bills for change, and we really appreciate that, so that's terrific. Also, our ice cream social is coming up September 26th, and we are going to have root beer floats this time. So if you like a root beer float, come and join us. And I think I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to our money team here, and now we're on to programs, and Ann tonight is going to talk about what's coming up and present our presenters tonight. Oh, one more thing is when our presenters are finished, I will be in the back. And if you would like to ask them a question, if you will line up and remember to phrase it in the form of a question and give them the opportunity to fill us in.
Do you want them to come over while I'm talking? Okay, sure. Well, first of all, I'm going to throw community outreach in here. I want to thank you for all the beautiful clothes you donated for the Care Corner at Saddleback College for students to do job interviews with. I'm sure they'll appreciate it when I take those out to them this week. School's starting, so I think they'll really look forward to having some really cool clothes to wear when they go for their interviews. Next month is going to be a Laguna Beach Friendship Shelter for the homeless. They basically use both sexes of underwear, and this is when you can get rid of your travel size sanitary products. So anything you have, it's travel size, you can do it. There'll be a list in the Sunday newsletter of all the items that they can use there. For our programs, next month, we're going to have Jody Balma, Professor of Political Science of Fullerton. I just found out she was a student of Professor Boyum, who's speaking to us tonight. And I also found out Louise worked under Professor Boyum when she was teaching at Saddleback College. So he has a connection to our club. In October, we're going to be having Michael Saul go over those wonderful propositions on your ballot. So if you want to bring a notebook with you or bring your ballot with you, something to write down notes as he's going over it, I would suggest that. Because there's a lot of propositions and he's going to have a lot of things to be explaining to us, the pros and the cons. So for tonight we have two distinguished speakers. Professor Keith Boyum is Emeritus Professor of Political Science at Cal State Fullerton, who has been named an outstanding professor by the university. He has co-authored 6 books as well as numerous articles. His specialties include American and California government, and he has won the Warren Burger Award for contributions for the improvement of our nation's ports and has implemented public opinion surveys of Orange County under the Fullerton Center for Public Policy. He has also been Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs for the California State University System. Along with him, Dr. Ron Steiner has taught political science and law at Chapman University since 1993. He has served as a law clerk on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and as a law clerk extern on the California Court of Appeals. He worked several years for the international law firm of Sidley Austin, handling appellate and law-intensive litigation, including World War II-era forced labor claims and regulatory proceedings before the FCC. In addition, he served in 1999 and 2000 as Deputy Counsel on the California Governor's Blue Ribbon Advisory Panel on hate groups. He is the winner of a number of teaching awards and was named Chapman's Faculty Member of the Year in 2006. After the presentation, we will have a Q&A, and I believe you have a little coda that if we have time after the questions, they just have a couple more slides that I'd like to go over with you. So please give a rounding applause for our 2 wonderful speakers.
Well, thank you so much, and it's great to be here. We have a lot to think about. We have the immediate campaigns that are coming up this year, and so it's great to see you have candidates coming already here and more to come. People are going to talk about things that are on the ballot. We wanted to step back a little bit and think about what's been going on really this century. It's almost hard to believe that we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century. I guess I have the white hair to prove it. Some of you do as well. So we're earning our way through the 21st century. But as political scientists and scholars of law and constitution, elections and politics, we wanted to think a little bit about how has politics changed over that first quarter of the 21st century. Donald Trump has been kind of a dominant figure of the last 10 years, but of course that's not the whole story. So imagine somebody, falls asleep in 2020 and they wake up in 2026 and they say, what's been happening in the last 25 years? Or to kind of take it a little bit out of the realm of the theoretical, imagine me on Monday when I meet with my students who were born after the year 2000, right? It gets scarier every year, I can't even make, pop culture jokes anymore. Like, they don't understand. So we have to sort of help people understand, like, what's been happening. So we can't go into a deep dive on any of this, but we want to kind of look at maybe these 8 different issues, just give you some reminders, some quick slides to kind of help situate. So some of this is about the culture and the politics and the economy of the United States, but some of it is about, really electoral issues and candidate issues and things like that. So we're going to tag team a little bit. So Keith is going to run through some of the first few. I'll pick up a couple of the others, and then Keith will come back and finish up. So here, Dr. Boyan.
1, 2, 3. Am I on? No. I'm not on. I'll just use the handheld. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go through some data slides. I'm going to do them pretty much in a hurry. I want to leave you with an impression more than I leave you with an opportunity to dive deep into data. I want to give you a sense of things more than the detail of things, and we can start with inequality over time. The first year of the 21st century was 2001, so it's a proper 25 years for us. From 1980, you can see inequality as sophisticatedly measured going up like a rocket. What happened in 1980? Ronald Reagan's tax cuts and the Republican Renaissance in Washington. Here's another take on inequality. This is the cumulative growth of labor productivity versus real hourly compensation. And here's a quote. We're going to grow like nobody's ever grown before. Who do you imagine? DJT on September the 5th of 2024. He was right. We have grown like nobody ever grew before because the proportion of the GDP that went to labor has been falling. Immigration. You know that there are quotes on immigration. Here's a couple. Illegal aliens coming into our country under Biden are treated better than our veterans. Okay? The people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live here. Donald J. Trump. The point to showing you this one is to think about where the issue comes from. Look back to about 1920 and focus some on the orange line, the percentages. The percentages are closer to the way the world feels. And think about what was happening in the first part of the 20th century. Anti-immigrant bias was good politics. The Ku Klux Klan was ascendant. The closing of the American immigration door happened in the middle 1920s. Money and politics. Do you think that there's been some changes here? Will Rogers said politics has become so expensive that it takes a lot of money to be defeated. And of course, Bernie Sanders says, if we don't get a handle on money and politics and the degree to which big money controls the political process in this country, nobody's going to bring about the changes that are needed in this country for the middle class and working families. 300 billionaires and their immediate family members donated more than 300 billionaires donated more than $3 billion, 19% of all contributions from the New York Times. In the 2025 Wisconsin Supreme Court race, big deal. You remember it? We're talking to political activists here. Elon Musk alone accounted for 17% of the contributions. Then there's healthcare. We're not cutting Medicaid. We're not cutting Medicare. We're not cutting Social Security. May 4th, 2025, costs were going to go way up, and that's what happened, and now I'm bringing them way down in healthcare and in everything else. That's the inauguration address. But ladies and gentlemen, you know, and I know, that healthcare is out of control, costs are out of control. American life expectancy at 79.4 years is about almost 4 years less than is common in other wealthy countries. France, Germany, Canada, Australia, Japan. And at that, with costs out of control, we can't even live as long as our peers in other nations live, and that doesn't even get you to the point about precarity, the inability of people to afford health care. Here's another slide. If you awakened in 2026 from your slumber that began in 2001, you would have seen national health care rise, gross domestic product and wages trailing. Here's one. How about homes? I came to Cal State Fullerton in the 1970s. I'm an old guy. And I bought my first house at a price that was about triple my annual salary, my gross annual salary. I could get a loan. I could get into a house. Can you get into a house that's $1 million or $2 million at this point? I don't think so. So if you awakened after 25 years, you would say affordability measures starting with housing are out of control. Gasoline is out of control. That we knew. I almost don't have to say anything about that, except Donald J. Trump has something to say about it. Energy is going to bring us back. That means we're going down and getting gasoline below $2 a gallon. Yesterday, it closed nationwide above 4. So, there you are. Trump said on the south lawn of the White House on March 26th of this year, we're going to prove that the golden age of American agriculture is right here and right now. Except, of course, it isn't. The total number of operational farms in the U.S. is sliding. And if you talk to farmers, and they will tell you about the economic distress down on the farm that starts, in fact, with all of the vicissitudes that farmers experience, but then you get the Trump tariffs. And of course, Trump said, America will be a manufacturing nation once again, like no other nation on earth. January 20th, 2025, in his second inaugural address. Well, I have left you with some data that I'm not going to pursue in detail. I mean to have left you with an impression. And the impression is, things aren't so good for our 25-year-old sleeper.
Okay, so but it gets worse. No, I guess it does. This isn't a time series, but just our friend wakes up after 25 years and says things are better, right? You know, like the whole racial stuff. We worked that out, right? No, we haven't. So unemployment is not where it ought to be. We've made progress. You know, we always have to keep in mind that progress has been made, but it's not where it ought to be, and it's certainly not time to kind of, you know, dust our hands and say, okay, that's done, because it's not. And as a matter of fact, some things are definitely going in the wrong direction. Gerrymandering, hyper-partisan gerrymandering with a racial tinge is at a place where it's kind of shocking. So in the 25-year arc that we're talking about, you think about majority black congressional districts in the United States, there used to be 27. Right now, today, there are 8, right? We're going to see a decline in the number of black members of Congress from the South in particular that is going to parallel the end of Reconstruction. It's going to be historic. Like 100 years in the future, people are going to look back and say, what the heck had just happened? So that's not the direction that we thought we were moving in. Now, it's not just gerrymandering, but this is the House of Representatives. If you look at what's been happening, these are competitive races. So political scientists would describe this as races where the winner wins by more than 55% of the vote, or doesn't. So the structural advantage is when you have a definite winner, that tells you how many seats are really competitive. Now, it got as bad in 2004. It's gotten a little better since then, but it's not like it used to be. And even, you know, in 2000, we were not prepared for what was about to happen. So the idea here is if you have a member of Congress and the opposition has no chance of winning, that person, that entrenched incumbent is just guaranteed to win. That does 2 things. It means the general election doesn't mean so much, and it also means the primary election maybe means too much, because you throw all of your resources into the primary election and you end up with a primary electorate who's not the same as the general electorate. So particularly in southern states, you end up with sort of very extreme Republican candidates, and you end up with some Democratic candidates who are more to the left than moderate candidates might be in some of those safe seats. But we don't have politicians who feel the need to sort of fight for the moderate or the middle voter because they are in safe seats. But it's not just gerrymandering that does that. Part of this is about where we live. And you see that partly reflected in the Senate. You know, every state has 2 senators. It used to be pretty common, more than half the states had split Senate delegations where one senator might be a Democrat and one might be a Republican. That used to be a thing that happened. Now it's 3 states. It doesn't happen anymore. And that's not gerrymandering, because you don't gerrymander a state, right? It's just 1 senator, you know, per election. So that reflects something kind of profound and I don't know, unnerving about the way people vote in the United States. So that's a bit of a problem. We also have this pattern where Democrats sort of perform pretty well, right? The blue line is up more than it's down. But we have this jagged pattern where the results turn out to be kind of extreme one way, not extreme, but high one way, and then down, and then high again, and down again. That makes politics erratic, particularly when the parties have some very, very different ideas that they want to enact. People will compare it to, we're going to drive on the right side of the road for the next 4 years, and now we're going to drive on the left side of the road, and then we're going to go back and drive on the right side of the road again. It just makes politics too unstable. And then another serious thing that we have to worry about. Now, this does kind of break with our frame, because This focuses on Donald Trump. But frankly, if I'm teaching my class on constitutional government, which I will start on Monday, one of the things I'll point out is just presidentialism as a phenomenon has increased, since World War II, certainly since Franklin Roosevelt, but very definitely since 2000. We've just had a different way of thinking about the president. We used to talk about, the national security state. Well, it's the national security state on steroids, particularly after September 11th, 2001. So we've given a lot of responsibility, power to the president, and then the Supreme Court comes along with its theory of, executive power that says the unitary executive branch combines all power into the person of the president, and so governmental authority will be done by the will and whim of the individual human being who happens to be the president. That's a different way of doing policy. And, as much as, you want to blame Donald Trump, political scientists, constitutional scholars say, Biden pulled some stuff too, and Obama pulled some stuff too, and they've all been doing it. And we've been walking up this ladder of increasing presidential power. I was talking with my son just earlier today. He was asking, when did all this start? And he's in his 20s, and he's actually 26. He was born in 2000. He's literally the person that we're illustrating here. And I was saying, well, a political scientist named Ron Lintz in 1990 wrote an article called "The Perils of Presidentialism." And what he said, he's South American origin, and what he said was, presidential model of government is a bad model. It's not as good, it's more dangerous. It more likely tips into authoritarianism. And you see this, in certain places in Latin America, certainly. And then he said, for reasons that no one really understands, the United States has been relatively immune from this problem, he said in 1990. And here we are today. The perils of presidentialism, just everything from that article applies to the United States today. So that's the kind of the danger, that's the scary part, that's sort of where we are. Now, a little bit of a tidbit, where do we think this is going to leave us in this upcoming election? Well, this chart here sort of showed, well, in, midterm elections, the out party tends to have a better chance. Lately, that's favored the Democrats. So there's this tailwind. The out party has a chance. And we see hints here and there that maybe there's a blue wave. On the other hand, there are these increasing structural barriers. Gerrymandering being a big one, the financial issue being another, campaign contributions, that sort of thing, the cost. So will the wave overcome the wall? Will the barrier stop the wave? We don't know. We'll have to see. There have been some interesting moments. We just saw in Florida and New York, the more progressive Democratic Socialist component that maybe is inside the Democratic Party and sometimes outside, but affiliated with the Democratic Party. It's making some headway. My 26-year-old son is very, very interested in these candidates because he's tired of these old gray-haired people telling him what to do all the time. Maybe that's personal, I don't know. But there's something to that. There's a freshness, there's a dynamism, there's let's fracture the old ways of thinking and try to do something different. So on the other hand, that provokes a lot of hostility, right? Fox News is telling us the Democratic Party has gone communist. But Donald Trump is friends with Kim Jong-un, so I don't know who's the real communist. Tallarico, a new kind of Democrat. Does the Democrats really have a chance in Texas? Maybe, right? Trump he's erratic. He picks these MAGA candidates, and sometimes they win, and sometimes they lose. Sometimes he overshoots. But a lot of it's going to come down to turnout. Now, our friend who was awake in 2000 and then fell asleep, back in 2000, the conventional wisdom was what you got to do is you got to motivate your voters. You got to motivate your base. And that's part of the story today, but there's a new story in politics today, which is you need to demotivate your opposition's base. And that's a new element in politics, right? I need to make you disappointed and frustrated with your candidate so that you'll stay home, and then my people will kind of have a better chance of winning. So that's a new element in politics, and it's kind of part of the nastiness and part of the frustration that we all see. Demotivating people from their own candidates is a kind of unpleasant way to do things. All right.
Well, does history rhyme? Was it Mark Twain, I guess, who said history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes? If it wasn't Mark Twain, it might as well have been. I debated with Ron and with myself about whether to include this slide, but it's fun. Heather Cox Richardson, if you know who she is, smart, smart, smart. I'm on her podcast. I'm on her blog. She was talking about parallels with other ages in history, other eras in history. And so I thought, if it's good enough for Heather Cox Richardson, I can. So look, times of intense ferment include the run-up to the Civil War, 1850s. The 1890s were filled with political ferment. The 1930s, of course. And if you're as old as I am, you remember something about the 1960s. And here's what Heather Cox Richardson wants to ask. Are we at the cusp of such another time of ferment and big change? Here's the answer. I don't know. But here's another answer. It wouldn't surprise me. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pause here. We're going to take questions and comments. And we're not really done yet, but it's a good moment to engage the audience, and then we'll get back to some really concerning things. So Ron, you better come up here.
Any questions right now? We got a mic here.
I got a hand right here. Yes, please.
Okay, if you'll line up over here, then you can use the mic and all can hear the question.
Over there. Yep. Over there.
Yep, our usual spot.
There we go.
I don't have a poster. Oh, you don't have a poster, okay. Okay, it's on.
You mentioned demotivation of the opposition to something like post-2000. I'm wondering, I'm going back to a book written by Steve Kornacki, Red State, Blue State, in which he brings up Newt Gingrich in the 90s with the Contract for America, or as I put the Contract on America. Would you say that that more or less was the birth of the demotivating the opposition? Just smear, 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 discourage, discourage, discourage.
You know, it's not like we never had smear campaigns in politics before. So you could put it there. You could say, you know, John Adams was pretty nasty to Thomas Jefferson. That's true too. I think, though, it does matter that something new has happened where political campaigns, campaign consultants are saying this is part of our strategy. That it's not just about motivating our people, it's about finding ways to demotivate the other side. So I think it's more conscious. Now, you could give Newt Gingrich credit for a lot that's gone wrong in American politics, and if you want to give him credit for that, that's fine too, because yeah, he did do a lot of damage.
Okay, we've got one more question. Actually, two more.
A headline in today's news was the Attorney General is going to empower 1,000 agents to oversee the polls. Question to you is whether those agents could take charge of the ballots.
It's a deep concern. It's a proximate, reach out and touch it concern. It's a concern we're going to go into in about a minute here. But the actions that are available to the Trump administration are the kind of things that close students of government worry about in the middle of the night. Okay. You showed a lot of really interesting graphs that most of us have seen before. Many of us understand them very well. How do you approach the opposition who don't seem to be able to understand math, science, anything you put up on the board, and get them to understand what's going on?
Yeah, this is more in the realm of political psychology or just plain psychology, but you know, there have been these, I would say, as a rationalist, right, disturbing studies where they say you have somebody who disagrees or maybe who is even factually wrong, and you give them more facts, and they just become more entrenched in their position. Because the alternative is for them to kind of go through the self-humiliation of saying, I was fooled, I was wrong, you know, I'm stupid, right? Nobody wants to do that, so they become more defensive. And in politics, I think in the end, that's what we need to do. So the good politicians are inspirational. They try to find common ground. They try to speak to people sort of where they are. You think about, you know, Obama at his best or Mamdani at his best, right? You know, how do you dislike the guy when he's smiling and he's trying to be friendly and he's trying to understand sort of who you are and where you're coming from and why? And that's the way you end up changing people's mind, is not by just doing what we did tonight, which is bombarding them with facts, but by kind of reaching their heart, if that's not too squishy, but reaching them to them as a person. So, you know, candidate tonight was saying, you know, like, we got to, you know, tell people, you know, we want to have childcare back in the schools, right? We're not trying to throw stats at you. We're trying to say, hey, people have a problem, and we got to find solutions to that problem. So things like that, I think the best candidates try to transcend the divide, I hope.
My only brief addition to that is to distinguish between the careful thinking voter, citizen, that Jim and Ron have been discussing here, and to separate that person from the low information voter. What's a low information voter? The rule of thumb in many sample surveys is you distinguish the low information voter from the relatively high information voter by asking them whether they happen to know which party controls the House of Representatives. And the people who didn't know who controlled the House of Representatives voted for Trump in 2024. So there is some hope for the efficacy of more information. Should we go on? We got one more, and then we'll continue with our coda, which we should turn out the lights and turn on the scary music.
So you very politely called them low information voters. They're ignorant. There is an incredible amount of ignorance in our society today. They do not understand how our government works, what the parts of our government are, or even just the basics, let alone current facts. How in the world do we fight that epidemic of ignorance?
So don't you be talking about my family that way. So I personally come from Appalachia, coal mining Appalachia. I come from people who used to be Union Democrats who are now Trump Republicans. So what happened, right? I think there's a whole variety of deep dives that try to do that diagnostic. But they don't know which party controls the House of Representatives, but their math isn't very good either, and their geography isn't very good either, right? So on one level, they've been let down by an educational system that's inadequate, and it's not just politics that they don't know. They don't know a lot of stuff. There's that. Another thing is they're busy and they're stressed. They don't pay attention to politics because they, you know, they have kids and they're single moms and they're struggling and they've got a couple of jobs that they're trying to juggle and gig work on the side. And so in many ways, you know, this is a sort of the gotcha with Hillary and the deplorables. Yeah, there are bad people in the world who should be taken to task for the moral judgments that they have made that have caused harm to other people. No question about it. But then there's a lot of other people who are, in some sense, the victims of this process. And I want to say they deserve our sympathy. And so, and that kind of sounds condescending, but they deserve to be treated like fellow human beings who have hopes and dreams and needs and disappointments. And they're confused and they're making a mistake, I think. We all think. But to connect with them, we're going to have to do something other than say, you know, you're a moron. Because that's not the basis for a connection, right? So when I deal with my, you know, Appalachian coal mining family, I've called them morons. It didn't go over very well. I've matured from past that. So we got to try to do that. But the thing to keep in mind is these people, my uncles were, my grandmother's family is McGuire. These are coal miners named McGuire, right? If you know the Molly McGuires, my uncles blew stuff up. My uncles shot at people. They were those kind of union members. That potential is still there. That identity is still there. It just has to be sort of tapped and used for good.
Okay, cue the scary music. The prospect of major efforts to interfere with the fall elections. Was Fulton County just the rehearsal? You know about Fulton County? They went in and seized ballots. Tulsi Gabbard was there. Concerns regarding election interference, threat of foreign manipulation, the impact of domestic disinformation, safeguarding the democratic process. Why would anybody fear interference running up to November the 3rd? And the answers start with, how about January the 6th of 2021? There's another list, and it goes like this. The SAVE Act has passed the House. Do you know the SAVE Act? It would impede people from voting in a variety of ways. There's enough nodding heads here, I won't go into it in detail. In January of 25, the Trump administration acted to disable the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Who knew there was one? Turns out it's a small group that was doing important stuff on interference from abroad. It's been disabled. Separately, then Attorney General Pam Bondi disbanded an FBI task force which was charged with combating election interference by the likes of Russia, China, Iran, others. On January the 28th, the FBI seized Fulton County, Georgia ballots. There were 650 boxes full. I was poking around and trying to get a number. It's a big number. Doesn't matter much. But notice that the Director of National Intelligence was on scene. The argument's going to be that having a foreign threat in the mix matters. In March of this year, Trump issued his second executive order to the Postal Service not to deliver ballots in states that refuse to hand over voter registration lists and information to the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice. It's been blocked by a nationwide injunction. Again, in March of this year, the Washington Post reported that pro-Trump activists were circulating a potential executive order that claimed Chinese interference in the 2020 election. And the same draft executive order gave Trump emergency authority over the 2026 election. You can draft an executive order, I can draft an executive order. I don't work in the White House. In May of this year, the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department asked states for voter roll information in order to determine non-citizen voting. On July the 7th, the Justice Department threatened criminal prosecution to state people who are running elections. Then there's the Trump address to the nation on July the 16th. The next day, Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, Homeland Security, alleged that 250,000 non-citizens had registered to vote, and quote, as many as, close quote, 190,832. Where did he get such a number? Were possible non-citizens registered to vote in this state, in California. That's just beginning the run-up. And then, what about following? What about other kinds of things in the run-up and the following? There's been an argument about, a concern about deep fakes. Cue the scary music. Democrats have been doing tabletop exercises in order to game out, rehearse counters to efforts by bad actors to include deepfake videos created with artificial intelligence showing evidence, quote, of widespread election fraud. You can worry about election workers receiving death threats and armed men appearing at the polls. A major concern is the possible declaration of a national emergency. Courts are unlikely to be able to react quickly. And then, after November the 3rd, the Cook Political Report, which you probably know about, has current forecasts of between a 2-seat majority for the Republicans in the House to a 20-seat Democrat majority. So there's about 22-seat swing that they're talking about. What could you do to mess with a close result? Because the Constitution makes each house the judge of its own elections, returns, and qualifications, it's Article 1, Section 5, members, and in fact members-elect, may challenge the right of another to be sworn in. Courts are not available for relief. There's a 1972 Supreme Court case that's unlikely to go anywhere, declaring all that stuff non-justiciable. The bases for challenging your right to be seated in the House are nowhere specified in either the Constitution or in statutes. Plainly, bad actors can act badly. Republicans could, on any basis, contest a loss. And finally, the clerk of the House. It gets complicated in a hurry, but the clerk of the House is a nonpartisan individual who's routinely reappointed, but is dismissible, fireable by the Speaker at any moment for any cause. Think about Speaker Johnson firing the clerk, whose name happens to be Kevin McCumber. We all know Kevin. Then imagine an inability to confirm a new clerk, turmoil about who may vote for a clerk, because the clerk, you see, assembles the roll of new members to be sworn in. And it goes on from there. Would defeated or retiring Republican members of Congress respond to White House calls for chaos? Hear the scary music. None of this has happened in the United States, but January the 6th of 2021, and the actions taken so far this year leave people like my friend Ron and myself concerned. Come on up here. Floor is back open again, or maybe we all just need to go home and hide under a pillow.
Okay, so thank you, gentlemen. That was interesting to kind of get the whole spectrum of things. And were there any more questions? Okay, all right, thank you very much for coming out and sharing all of that with us. Much appreciated. There's just one other thing that I scanned over on the, no pun intended, on the agenda is the Young Canyon Democrats evening. So if you see the QR code, so I see some young folks in here who would like to attend that. So it is on August 27th up in Rancho Santa Margarita. So please take a look at that. And then we'll see you at our next meeting. We have more candidates to present to you, and thank you for all of your engagement. And make sure you drop by any of these tables for your community. Thank you. Yeah, we need well, actually, we also need people to compile, do the stapling and all of that. So think of doing that.